The waiter slid the check across the table. $3,847.92. Gasps rippled as Daniel shoved it toward Claire. "You're a disgrace," he barked, loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. "A woman like you should be grateful I ever married you." He tossed his napkin like a victory flag and strode out. 17 wealthy friends trailing behind, laughing at her shame. Claire sat frozen, the red of her birthday dress burning under their stares. 43 today, and abandoned with a bill worth more than her monthly salary. Before diving deeper into Claire's story, don't forget to subscribe to her betrayal stories and turn on the notification bell. Here, you'll always find tales of sacrifice, betrayal, and the kind of twists that make you gasp. Where are you watching from tonight? Drop a comment below. Maybe the next story will echo your very own experience. The waiter slid the check across the table. $3,847.92. Laughter from Daniel's friends still buzzed as he stood tall, tossing his napkin like a victory flag. "You're a disgrace," he barked. "A woman like you should be grateful I even looked your way." 17 chairs scraped back. His polished circle of friends followed him out, leaving Claire alone in her red dress, the bill glowing under candlelight. Daniel had always reminded her she was his charity case. He came from marble foyers and golf memberships. She came from chalk dust and lesson plans. But never had the divide cut so cruelly. At the country club weeks earlier, Evelyn Rothschild, his venom-tongued ally, had spilled red wine down Claire's blouse, laughing, "Cheap fabric drinks quickly." Everyone had laughed. Daniel said nothing. Tonight felt like the encore. Claire's hands trembled as she reached into her purse. Beneath the Tiffany bracelet he'd chosen only to impress his friends, her fingers brushed a secret card. Years of tutoring checks, after-school bonuses, dollars he called pointless. All hidden here. Not much compared to his empire, but it was hers. She signed her name with slow, deliberate strokes. The black card vanished into the waiter's hand, and in the empty hush, she whispered, "Happy birthday to me." Through the glass wall, Victor, the restaurant manager, watched silently. He had seen everything. A flicker crossed his face, as if storing away a secret that might matter later. But the night was not done. The humiliation was only the seed. Daniel's betrayal ran deeper. Money, lies, another woman. And perhaps, just perhaps, the law itself waiting on her side. If you were in Claire's place, humiliated in public, betrayed in private, what would you do? Would you stay silent or would you fight back? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters here. The next morning, sunlight flooded Claire's classroom, warm beams painting the chalkboard in gold. Yet even the children's chatter, the shuffle of pencils and books, couldn't wash away the echo of last night. Shame clung to her like smoke. She forced herself through multiplication tables, her voice steady though her stomach churned. Every time her chalk scraped the board, she heard instead Daniel's voice, "You're a disgrace." At lunch, the door to the teacher's lounge banged open. Monica stormed in, breathless, her phone clenched like a weapon. "Claire, is this you?" On the screen was a photo already viral. Claire frozen in her red dress, the $3,847.92 bill glaring before her, Daniel's back mid-stride as he abandoned her. The caption sneered, "When charity turns into embarrassment." Know your place. Claire's stomach twisted into knots. "They posted it?" Monica's eyes softened with fury. "It's everywhere. Parents, neighbors, even the club circle. They wanted the world to laugh at you." Claire sat motionless, as if her body might crumble under the weight of invisible eyes, the walls of the lounge closing in. Mini cliffhanger. The humiliation wasn't over. It had just begun. That evening, Daniel came home whistling as if he were the victor of some great war. He tossed his jacket onto the couch with careless pride, poured himself a scotch, and smirked. "You should thank me," he said. Claire's voice was brittle. "For what?" "For teaching you your limits." "You don't belong in that world, Claire. I gave you a taste, and you choked. Maybe now you'll stay in your lane." His words landed like blows, each syllable a blade. She wanted to scream, to hurl the glass across the room, to shatter his smug calm. But years of silence pressed against her throat, locking the words inside. He leaned close, the sour heat of whiskey burning her nose. "You're useless now. Too old. Accept the divorce, and it'll hurt less." The word divorce detonated inside her chest, louder than any slap. Mini cliffhanger. Divorce wasn't just an escape for him. It was a weapon. Days blurred together. Daniel's glances became verdicts. His conversations sharpened into lectures. At a charity luncheon, Evelyn Rothschild leaned in, her lips grazing Claire's ear. "Sweetheart, some women age gracefully. Some, well, they cling." Laughter erupted from the table like cruel applause. Daniel didn't defend her. He raised his glass to toast Evelyn's wit. The crystal clink echoed louder than Claire's own heartbeat. She sat rigid, her cheeks aflame, tasting humiliation and betrayal all over again. That night, at home, Daniel's whispers pierced the dark. "No man will ever want you. Your students pity you, not respect you. You'd be nothing without me." But in her mind, another refrain began to grow stronger. "He wants me small, wants me broken. Not anymore." One night, Claire met Monica in a dim cafe, rain streaking the windows, city lights bleeding through like smeared paint. "Claire," Monica said, leaning forward, "I've seen financial patterns like this before. Daniel is moving money, quietly. Offshore accounts, hidden transactions." Claire's brows furrowed. "How can you be sure?" Monica hesitated, lowering her voice. "I can't show everything yet, but the gaps are there. He's not just cruel. He's dirty." The words struck Claire like flint to steel. For weeks she had carried only shame. Now a flicker of possibility sparked inside her chest. Mini cliffhanger. Daniel's betrayal wasn't confined to marriage. It reached into crimes that could topple him. 2 days later, after class, little Sophie tugged on her sleeve. The girl's eyes brimmed with innocence and defiance all at once. "Miss Claire? I saw people being mean to you on my mom's phone." "Don't listen to them. You're the best teacher." Claire crouched, blinking back tears. Sophie's small fingers brushed the bead bracelet on her wrist, plastic strung together with love. It dug into her skin, a reminder that loyalty and truth weighed more than diamonds ever could. "Thank you, Sophie," Claire whispered. "That means more than you know." As the girl skipped away, Claire looked down at the bracelet. It wasn't glamorous, but it anchored her to something Daniel could never touch. Mini cliffhanger. She was not entirely alone. Someone still believed in her. Daniel's cruelty escalated. He began locking his office door, clutching his phone even while shaving, stepping outside at 2 a.m. for hushed calls. One night, through a half-open window, Claire heard his voice, low and venomous. "She'll sign whatever I put in front of her. By the time she realizes, the money's gone." Her blood ran cold. This was no longer emotional abuse, it was financial warfare. One evening, as the shower roared behind a closed door, Claire's eyes landed on Daniel's briefcase resting by the dresser. Her breath quickened. She unlatched it with trembling fingers. Inside, beneath glossy brochures for Caribbean resorts, lay a folder stamped confidential. She opened it. Draft divorce papers. Statements from accounts she had never seen. A psychological evaluation request. Evelyn's signature scrawled at the bottom. Her hands shook violently. He wasn't just leaving her. He was preparing to erase her dignity, to paint her as unstable, to strip her of everything. The water shut off. Claire's pulse spiked. She slid the documents back, snapped the briefcase shut, and slipped into her chair just as Daniel stepped out, towel slung around his neck, humming. Mini cliffhanger. He thought the papers were still his secret. But now, she knew. Later, in the hush of midnight, Claire lay awake. Beside him, moonlight striped the ceiling, painting her face in silver and shadow. Daniel snored softly, oblivious. Claire turned her head, jaw clenched, eyes sharp. For the first time, her gaze carried not fear, but fire. She whispered into the dark, "You think I'm powerless, but you have no idea who you married." The camera of imagination lingered there, on a woman no longer broken, but forged in the fire of betrayal. If you were in Claire's place, humiliated in public, betrayed in private, what would you do? Would you stay silent, or would you fight back? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters here. The dinner humiliation still echoed in every corner of Claire's mind. Daniel's voice spitting, "You're a disgrace." The bill for nearly $4,000 burning under the candlelight, and the way his friends laughed as they walked out. That night could have broken her. Instead, it carved out steel she never knew she carried. For years, she had been the dutiful wife, the quiet teacher, the invisible shadow in Daniel's glossy world. But now, each insult he hurled no longer sounded like a verdict. It sounded like evidence. Evidence of who he truly was and of how much she had endured. Mini cliffhanger. Humiliation had birthed not defeat, but strategy. One afternoon, as Daniel fastened his cufflinks before a supposed business dinner, Claire's eyes caught a faint smear of lipstick, deep red, not hers. "Suspicious now, are we?" Daniel sneered when she asked. He adjusted his sleeve with smug precision. "Don't embarrass yourself. Everyone knows I could have better." His arrogance rang louder than the ticking clock on the wall. Claire said nothing, but inside, something snapped. That arrogance would be his first mistake. That evening, she called Monica. They met at a small cafe tucked away on a quiet street, rain streaking the windows. "He's planning something bigger than just leaving," Claire whispered, her hands tight around a mug of tea. Monica's voice was urgent, her laptop glowing between them. "I pulled some client records." "Claire, he's skimming. 2.3 million siphoned from elderly investors. If this leaks," he's finished. Claire's breath caught. "So he's not just betraying me, he's betraying everyone." Monica leaned closer, her tone low and deliberate. "If you're willing, I can help you build a case. But you'll need to play along. He can't suspect you know." Steam curled from Claire's cup like a vow. Play along. For the first time, she wasn't reacting. She was preparing. Mini cliffhanger. She had stepped from silence into strategy. The next day, after her students left, Claire lingered in the classroom. On her desk lay 2 bracelets, Sophie's plastic bead string and Daniel's Tiffany diamonds. She held them both. One glittered with wealth but felt empty. The other was clumsy, fragile, but pulsed with truth. She slid Sophie's bracelet onto her wrist and tucked Daniel's into a drawer. It was a small act, invisible to the world, but inside it roared. "My loyalty belongs to those who love me sincerely, not those who measure me by cost." Daniel grew careless when he felt invincible. One evening, as he stepped outside to take a hushed phone call, Claire sat before his laptop. Password prompt. Her pulse hammered. Daniel was vain, predictable. She typed their wedding date. Wrong. His yacht model. Wrong. Then, almost laughing at the irony, She entered her own birthday, the same day he had weaponized against her. Click. Access granted. Spreadsheets bloomed across the screen. Offshore transfers, coded invoices, emails dripping with arrogance. Her chest tightened. She didn't download everything yet. Monica would know how to do it safely. But she snapped a quick photo of one damning page. Proof. That night, Daniel mocked her silence again. Do you even notice how quiet you've become? Good. Stay that way. But inside, Claire wasn't quiet. She was calculating. His insults no longer pierced. They fueled her resolve. As she lay awake that night, Claire thought of every woman who had ever sat across a dinner table, swallowing disrespect for the sake of peace. How many had stayed silent, convinced they had no choice? Claire whispered into the dark. Not me. Not anymore. Mini cliffhanger. Silence was no longer her prison. It was her weapon. Days later, her phone rang unexpectedly. Victor, the restaurant manager, spoke cautiously. Mrs. Matthews, I don't mean to intrude, but I saw how he treated you that night. We keep security footage. It's policy. Claire's pulse spiked. Footage? Yes. If ever you need proof, she thanked him, her voice shaking. Another card slid into her hand. Daniel thought the world saw only his version. But piece by piece, the truth was turning toward her side. One evening, Daniel stormed into the living room, his face twisted with disdain. He slammed a folder onto the table. Sign it, he demanded. Claire opened the folder. Divorce papers, clauses declaring her mentally unstable, provisions stripping her of support, Evelyn's signature as a character witness. Her eyes lingered on the words. She lifted her gaze slowly, letting silence fill the air like smoke. For the first time, Daniel flinched, because in her eyes he didn't see fear anymore. He saw danger. She pushed the folder back across the polished wood. Not tonight. I'll read every word. Daniel barked a dismissive laugh, pouring himself another drink. But deep down, unease stirred. She hadn't spoken like a victim. She had spoken like a woman who knew his empire was cracking. That night, Claire lay awake, the moon carving silver across the ceiling. Daniel slept beside her, his breath heavy, certain of his power. But Claire's eyes stayed open, burning with clarity. She whispered into the darkness, "You think I'm powerless. But you have no idea who you married." Her face half lit, half shadowed, the camera of imagination lingered on a woman whose silence had turned into resolve, whose humiliation had become her fuel. Mini cliffhanger. She had crossed the line from endurance to rebellion. Have you ever reached that moment when someone's cruelty stopped breaking you and started building your resolve? Share it below. Someone here may need to hear how strength can rise from silence. The night before Daniel's grand investor gala, he strutted across their bedroom like a king rehearsing his coronation. His cufflinks glinted beneath the lamplight, his smile sharp and untouchable. Tomorrow, he boasted, pacing before the mirror, I'll secure the final round. After that, we're untouchable. Everyone will beg to be in my circle. Claire folded her dress quietly on the bed, her eyes lowered. On the surface, she looked small, compliant, just as Daniel liked. But inside, her pulse thudded steady, because tomorrow wasn't his coronation. Tomorrow was his downfall. Mini cliffhanger. The queen he thought invisible was already sharpening her blade. Monica had worked tirelessly, combing through records late into the night. On the phone, her voice carried both exhaustion and triumph. Claire, we've got him. Wire transfers, falsified invoices, a direct trail to his accounts. He siphoned millions from retirees. It's all here. All we need is the right stage to make it count. The stage was already waiting. Daniel's glittering gala, a hall packed with investors, journalists, and his most loyal enablers, including Evelyn Rothschild, his venom-tongued ally. Victor, too, had joined the quiet rebellion. One evening, he slipped a small USB drive into Claire's hand. "Security footage," he murmured. "The night he left you with the bill. If you ever need to remind them who he really is, this will do it." Claire closed her fingers around it, trembling, not with fear, but anticipation. For once, she wasn't the humiliated wife. She was the woman holding the knife at the ceremony. The ballroom shimmered with chandeliers, golden light spilling across velvet curtains and polished marble. Waiters glided with champagne trays. Investors laughed loudly, their jeweled wives trailing behind like ornaments. Daniel was in his element, tailored tuxedo flawless, glass in hand, his smile wide enough to dazzle the cameras. He worked the room with champagne confidence, shaking hands, whispering promises. Evelyn hovered at his elbow, her laughter cutting through the air like broken glass. At the far back, nearly hidden by the crowd, stood Claire. No diamonds, no jewels, only a simple navy silk dress. She looked understated, almost invisible, but her gaze was razor-sharp. Mini cliffhanger. No one saw the storm brewing in the quiet woman at the back of the hall. The music softened. Daniel strode onto the stage, the spotlight washing him in gold. "To prosperity," he declared, raising his glass, "to integrity, to a future built on trust." The screen behind him flickered. For a moment, the audience thought it was a glitch. Then images appeared, spreadsheets, account numbers, offshore transfers. Dates lined up like bullets. Each figure screamed fraud. Gasps cracked across the hall. Evelyn's glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the marble. Daniel froze, blinking into the glare. "What is this?" "Cut it off." But before anyone could move, the footage rolled. The restaurant scene. Daniel's voice boomed from the speakers, cruel and unmistakable. "You're a disgrace, Claire. A woman like you should be grateful I even looked your way." The words echoed under the chandeliers. Silence crashed over the room. Dozens of eyes turned, not toward the screen, but toward the woman in navy silk at the back, Claire. Daniel's face contorted, rage surging as he stormed through the crowd toward her. His polished shoes struck like gunfire against the floor. "You did this," he hissed, his voice no longer charming but venomous. Claire's spine was straight, her voice steady. "No, Daniel. You did this. I just stopped covering for you." He laughed, desperate, almost wild. "You think anyone will believe you? You're nobody. You're a teacher in a second-hand dress." But Claire's tone sliced through the ballroom like glass. "This villa? This lifestyle? Every ounce of it was built on lies. And now, the lies are choking you." Murmurs spread. Journalists scribbled furiously. Dozens of phones filmed every second. Evelyn's smile faltered. She edged backward, away from the sinking ship. Mini cliffhanger. Daniel's empire was crumbling, not behind closed doors, but in front of the very people who once cheered him. Suddenly, Daniel's phone buzzed relentlessly. He yanked it out, barked into it, and paled. "What do you mean? Frozen accounts? FBI?" His hands trembled. Sweat gathered at his temple, glistening under the chandeliers. "No, no, this is a mistake. I'll fix it. I'll fix everything." But no one stepped forward. Investors whispered about lawsuits. Evelyn turned her back, muttering about reputations. The loyal circle that once shielded him now scattered like leaves in wind. Security moved closer. Daniel's bravado cracked. He lunged at Claire, clawing her arm. "You'll regret this. I made you." Claire's eyes blazed, her voice cutting like a blade. No, Daniel. I made me, and I'm done carrying your sins. Security seized him, dragging him back as his shouts echoed uselessly across the hall. The man who once humiliated her was now the spectacle of disgrace. Claire stood still, breathing deep. For the first time in years, her shoulders felt light. The silence that once suffocated her was gone. In its place was something fierce, something free. Outside, the night air wrapped cool around her skin. The city hummed beyond the gala's glittering doors. Monica appeared, slipping a hand onto her shoulder. "It's over," she whispered. Claire exhaled, her chest unbound. "No, it's just beginning. Now I get to rebuild on my own terms." Monica's smile was soft but proud. "Then let's start with freedom." Back home, the house was quiet. No Daniel, no poison dripping from his lips. Just Claire and the sound of her own steady breath. She opened a drawer and lifted 2 bracelets. Daniel's Tiffany diamonds glittered coldly in the lamplight. Sophie's beaded string, uneven and bright, rested in her other palm. She weighed them, feeling their stories. One was meant to chain her. The other reminded her who she really was. Slowly, she set the Tiffany bracelet down, its shine suddenly hollow. She slipped Sophie's beads onto her wrist, their soft clink grounding her. "Happy birthday to me," she whispered, this time not in sorrow but in triumph. Mini cliffhanger. The woman once humiliated in a restaurant had risen, not just free, but unbreakable. If you were in that ballroom, watching Daniel's downfall, would you have clapped for Claire or stayed silent? Tell us in the comments below. Moments like these remind us, silence can be broken, and justice can roar. The morning sun spilled through the curtains, gentle and golden. For the first time in years, Claire woke without dread pressing on her chest. No footsteps pacing the hallway, no voice ready to slice her down before breakfast. Only silence. Peaceful now, not heavy. She lingered under the covers, staring at the ceiling as warm light painted soft patterns across the walls. Freedom had no roar, no trumpets. It came like this: quiet, steady, unshakable. At the kitchen table, she sat with a cup of coffee, steam curling upward like incense. On the chair beside her lay a manila envelope, official notice. Daniel's accounts frozen, court summons prepared, divorce proceedings to move forward, with Claire holding the upper hand. She traced her finger across the envelope's edge, not with bitterness, but with relief. Justice had a sound after all. It wasn't loud, it was quiet, firm, irrevocable, mini cliffhanger. The woman once silenced now held the law itself on her side. Later that week, when Claire walked into her classroom, the children erupted into applause. Small hands clapped wildly, voices squealed her name. Across the chalkboard, someone had hung a homemade banner. "Welcome back, Miss Claire." Her throat tightened. Before she could speak, Sophie ran forward, arms open wide. Claire bent down, gathering the girl into her embrace. "I told you," Sophie whispered, her voice fierce for someone so small. "You're the best teacher." Tears welled in Claire's eyes, but this time not from shame, from gratitude, from being seen. Not as Daniel's wife, not as society's charity case, simply as herself. The plastic beads on her wrist dug gently into her skin, reminding her of the truth. Love weighed more than diamonds ever could. That evening, Julia, her younger sister, appeared at her door with a bouquet of lilies. The fragrance filled the small kitchen as they sat together. "You looked untouchable on that stage," Julia said softly. "I wish Mom and Dad were alive to see it." Claire's smile trembled, tender and wistful. "Maybe they did. Maybe they're the reason I finally stood tall." Julia hesitated, twisting a stem between her fingers. Do you regret it? Exposing him like that? In front of everyone? Claire's gaze was steady. No. Regret is for silence. What I did was necessary. For me. For every woman who's ever been told she's worthless. Sometimes the only way to reclaim yourself is to draw a line so sharp it cuts the lies away. The sisters sat in quiet understanding, the only sound the ticking clock on the wall. Weeks later, Claire faced Daniel again, but this time in a courtroom, not in their home. Daniel sat at the defendant's table, a shadow of the man who once strutted across gala stages. His suit hung looser, his hair unkempt, his hands trembling as they fiddled with a pen. Sweat glistened on his brow under the harsh lights. His lawyers muttered strategies, flipping through files, but the evidence stacked against him was insurmountable. Wire transfers, fraudulent invoices, testimonies. And the video, the one where he called Claire a disgrace. It had circled the world by now. When the judge invited Claire to speak, she rose. Her heels clicked softly against the floor as she stepped forward. Her hands didn't shake. For years, she began, her voice calm, I was told I was nothing, that my worth was tied to him. But worth isn't measured by money or by power. It's measured by love, by integrity, by what you give to others. He forgot that. I never did. The courtroom hushed. Reporters scribbled furiously. Even Daniel bowed his head, unable, or unwilling, to meet her gaze. The gavel struck. The outcome was clear. Daniel lost his assets, his reputation, his freedom, pending investigation. Mini cliffhanger. The man who once boasted of being untouchable had been undone by the very woman he tried to erase. Claire walked out of the courthouse not as his victim, but as her own victor. On the courthouse steps, cameras flashed, microphones thrust toward her. Journalists shouted questions. How did it feel to expose him? What's next for you? Claire didn't stop for spectacle. She simply lifted her chin, sunlight catching Sophie's beaded bracelet on her wrist, and walked forward. The message was already clear. Justice didn't need fanfare. It just needed to stand tall. Back home, she opened the box where she kept her few mementos. Inside lay the Tiffany bracelet, once dazzling, once a symbol of Daniel's control. She lifted it, weighed it in her palm. Its shine was still cold, lifeless, heavy. She set it down gently inside the box and closed the lid. Not out of hate, but as a reminder. Never again. On her wrist, Sophie's bracelet glowed in the fading light. Fragile, simple, eternal. One evening, as she sat grading papers, she paused. She opened her journal and let her pen flow. Respect isn't given by blood or by name. It's earned through love, through kindness, through truth. Betrayal wounds, but justice heals. And sometimes, the greatest revenge is not cruelty. It is walking away whole. She closed the journal, a soft smile tugging at her lips. The words were hers, but they carried echoes of every woman she had ever known. Her story wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to every woman who had been laughed at, dismissed, or betrayed. Every woman who had swallowed silence until it hardened in her chest. Claire's journey was a reminder. Silence can be broken, dignity can be reclaimed, and no one, not even the most powerful, can erase the truth forever. She turned off the light that night, her home quiet, her heart steady. Tomorrow she would teach again, live again, dream again, on her own terms. If you were in Claire's shoes, betrayed, humiliated, but holding the chance to turn it all around, would you have done the same? Or would you have chosen a different path? Have you ever witnessed or lived through a moment when silence was broken and justice finally spoke? Share your story in the comments below, because here, no one carries pain alone. At Her Betrayal Stories, every tale is a reminder. Sacrifice matters, betrayal has consequences, and justice, though sometimes delayed, always arrives. Don't forget to subscribe, leave your thoughts, and join a community where voices rise together. Because in the end, betrayal may cut deep, but truth heals deeper.